Okay, so let's start with the big one. What if our most basic fundamental assumption about all of reality is completely backward? What if we've all been looking at the universe through the wrong end of the telescope? Today, we're going to dive into an idea that does exactly that. It flips our entire understanding of consciousness right on its head.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Think about what's happening in your head right now. It's this incredible storm of neurons firing, a cascade of chemicals and electrical signals. We can map it, sure, we can measure it, but science can't explain the most important part. Why does it feel like something to be you? Why is there an inner movie playing, starring you, right now? This question, it isn't just some little puzzle. It's arguably the biggest mystery in all of science.
Yeah, this mystery is so profound it actually has a name, the hard problem of consciousness. The philosopher David Chalmers basically drew a line in the sand. He separated out the easy problems, like, figuring out how the brain processes data, from the really hard problem. Why do we experience anything at all? And this quote just cuts right to the heart of it. It's this massive, gaping chasm between the physical world of brain cells and your private, internal world of feelings, thoughts, your entire reality. For decades, this question has been, well, a total dead end for both science and philosophy. So, what's the standard story we've all been told? It usually goes something like this. Matter is the foundation of everything. It's the real stuff. And then, somehow, from the incredibly complex wiring of our physical brains, consciousness just kind of appears. It's an emergent property, right? A ghost in the machine. And what's really fascinating here is that almost every major theory, from the ones that say consciousness is just brain activity, to even the wilder ones that suggest it's a property of all matter, they all start from the exact same place. They all begin with the physical world and are desperately trying to build a bridge to the mental world. But what if the bridge can't be built? Not because it's hard, but because we started on the wrong side of the canyon to begin with.
And this is where the script completely flips. What if the entire framework we've been using is just wrong? What if we have been looking at reality completely backward this whole time?
So here's the old model, clean and simple. The brain, a physical object, produces the non-physical experience of consciousness. This is the arrow of causality we've all been taught. It feels intuitive, doesn't it? But this is the arrow that leads us straight into that wall, the hard problem we just can't seem to solve. And now, the great inversion. This right here, this is the heart of the paradigm shift we're exploring. The arrow just flips. Consciousness is not the end product. No, it's the source. It's the fundamental reality from which the appearance of a physical brain and a physical universe manifests. This radical new model is called ERM, which stands for Eternal Recursive Manifestation. The core idea is actually pretty simple, but it is so profound. It says consciousness isn't something that happens inside the universe is something that happens inside consciousness. It's the ontological primitive, which, is just a fancy way of saying it's the fundamental bedrock of reality itself. Reality isn't a container that holds awareness. Reality is awareness.
Okay, so how does this actually work? Well, you can think of it as a three-step process. It all starts with pure awareness. Not awareness of anything, just the fundamental capacity to notice. Then, as awareness reflects on itself, it starts creating distinctions. Boom, that's information. And finally, when this process of self-reflection happens over and over and over again, infinitely, it generates the stable, ordered structure that you and I experience as reality. You can even capture this idea in a simple, really elegant formula. A stable reality is the product of information, or awareness, represented by the I for information, squared, and then multiplied by an infinite recursive process. This feedback loop between information and itself is this beautifully simple engine for generating literally everything we experience.
Maybe the best way to really wrap your head around this shift is with an analogy. The old view sees the brain as a generator. Think of a light bulb, right? It's working hard, burning filament, creating light from electricity. But in the ERM view, the brain isn't a light bulb. It's a prism. The light, consciousness, is already everywhere. It's fundamental. The brain just acts like a lens, a prism that focuses and refracts that universal light into the specific, colorful, and, limited experience of being you.
As wild as this all sounds, it's really not a new idea. It's actually part of this unbroken undercurrent in human thought that stretches back for centuries. You can find it in ancient Hindu philosophy, in the work of idealist philosophers like Berkeley and Schopenhauer. And fascinatingly, it pops right back up in one of the deepest mysteries of modern physics.
And that mystery is the quantum measurement problem. See, at the quantum level, particles exist in this weird fog of possibilities until they're observed. The very act of measurement seems to force them to snap into a single, definite reality. Now, from the ERM perspective, this isn't weird at all. In fact, it's exactly what you'd expect. Reality doesn't exist until it is observed because reality is the act of observation.
So let's circle all the way back to where we started. With his inverted framework, the hard problem of consciousness, well, it just disappears. It's not solved, it's dissolved. It was never a real problem with reality, but a conceptual knot we tied ourselves into by starting from the wrong place, by starting with matter instead of mind.
We began this whole explainer with this question, didn't we? It's the question that assumes the brain is a generator, a machine that somehow manufactures subjective experience from dead matter. And it's a question that has led to a dead end.
But if we flip the arrow, we're left with a profoundly different and, frankly, a far more interesting question. We stop asking how matter creates mind, and instead we ask, how does a fundamental, universal consciousness create the appearance of a physical world? A world that includes the very brain we're using to think about it right now. And that, well, that changes everything.